Hi, my name is Miliana, a female entrepreneur, passionate about inspiring other females in creating a life they love and sovereignty, while developing businesses with a positive impact. I grew up on a small farm, surrounded by cows, sheep, chickens, dogs, cats, and nature. That's where I learned that a natural, sustainable way is sometimes the best way. I think it is how our modern world can heal itself from the inside out. I strive to do what makes me happy, work with people that inspire, and share some of these moments with you.
Hi everyone, thank you for joining me for yet another fruitful talk. Today's guest is Yame, belly dance instructor, performer, and owner of SharqiDance.com. Thank you so much for joining me today and being here with us and sharing your story. Um, is there anything else you'd like to add?
Thank you, Miliana. It's a pleasure to be here. I love the project that you're embarking on, and I'm really happy to get to be a part of this episode.
Thank you so much. Okay, so we will get started, and I know I know you a little bit because I've taken some of your classes before, and it's been an absolute pleasure to to be in those classes. I wanted to ask a little bit if it's okay with you, a little bit of your journey because I know you yourself were not born here, though I don't think anyone could tell because you speak perfectly English. But I wanted to share a little bit of that side of you with the audience.
Yeah, sure. So yes, I was born in Brazil and raised in Brazil. I moved here 21 years ago, so I was 13 years old, and yeah, so it's definitely been quite a journey, getting to experience life in the US as an immigrant has definitely given me some different perspectives from what most people get to have, and some of them have been painful experiences, and some of them have been wonderful experiences. So yeah, so that's a little bit about that background.
Okay. And going into your as an instructor, right, and a performer as a belly dancing. Do you feel like your what you do right now fits within a greater purpose in your life? And do you have a purpose? Because not everyone does.
So yes, I definitely think that doing this for a living right now, teaching belly dance and having my own business is a huge part of my purpose, um, and is why I do it. It's why I've decided to give this my all, and I feel that I definitely doing this work makes a difference in people's lives in a way that um, working a corporate job that I used to work with didn't didn't really I didn't feel like I was fulfilling a higher purpose doing that. I do think that everyone has a purpose. Our purpose over the course of our lives also shifts and changes. It's just, I guess, a matter of how connected you are to your purpose, because usually it's not living your purpose is not something that's going to necessarily be easy. You do have to go through some challenges and face some things that might be a little bit scary. Um, but it's something that I think we all have, and we all get to choose whether or not we're going to tune into that.
Hmm. And what do you feel that your purpose is?
Um, so I guess that's kind of, I don't know. I always have a hard time really like defining it in words, but I guess right now, in this moment, my purpose is to heal and to grow and to empower myself through movement, and by doing so to help other people to do the same. So to give people the tools to do the same for themselves, or to give, maybe to inspire other people to do the same. I definitely don't claim that I'm going to heal you, but definitely what I can share from my own experience and the knowledge that I have in the dance can help to empower somebody else to do that for themselves.
Yeah, thank you for empowering me and adding to my healing journey. I really do believe that your classes have contributed a lot to me feeling more confident and comfortable in my own skin, and doing something different outside of my comfort zone. Something that I think often in media is not always looked to as a dance that is like something you perform or do, I don't know, at a family dinner, for example. It's more like it's very sensual, and people are not very comfortable dancing like that. And it really takes something for us to step into something different. Okay. So thank you for sharing that, and thank you for contributing to all of us.
Thank you for
Um,
sharing that. I do want to kind of um, go with that a little bit, because I think you touched upon something that's so important, and it's so crucial to the work that I do, and it's the reason I think why it's so powerful and so empowering is because it does get us to move our bodies in certain ways that we're not used to, and also that are kind of like looked down upon in our culture, in our society. Kind of, there's this idea of like, oh, this is sexual, or this is sensual, and therefore it's frivolous, and therefore it's just, you shouldn't do it. You shouldn't move your body that way. There's all these kind of labels that we will place on people that are comfortable with their bodies in that way. Or, maybe it's just something that, okay, it's okay to do it, but it's just silly and it's just frivolous and there's nothing to it. And I really feel like there's nothing that could be further from the truth. And that a part of what's wrong with our society, like the same reasons why our society has these views, are things that really, they hold us back. We're held back for having these views. So we have these bodies, and really we should feel free to move our bodies in whatever ways we feel like. And the types of movements that we do in belly dance, a lot of the hip movements. Of course, it's not all hip movements. Belly dance involves moving the whole body, expressing yourself, from the tips of your fingers down to your toes and your face. So it involves traveling steps and everything else. But, what we associate with belly dance mostly is the hip movements, which is definitely a big focus of the dance. And those movements are so healthy for us to do, and they're so natural. Of course, we don't feel like they're natural when we're first learning it, because we haven't been used to moving our bodies like that our whole lives. But these are very, very natural movements, and the roots of the more basic movements, they probably do date back thousands and thousands of years. And I do think that there's this connection of these types of movements that are very kind of primal, so it's not a belly dance. Of course, it's an art form that the movements are done a very specific way. So I'm not saying that that belly dance as we know it has existed for thousands of years, but the basic movements, being able to undulate and circle the hips and things like that, that's done across various different cultures, and it has been done across various different cultures for a long time. So I think it's really, really healthy to get in tune with that, and to get to know your body in that way. So that's why it's really, really empowering. And our culture has those kind of taboos. But in other cultures, like in the Middle East, and particularly in Arab countries, and I'll talk specifically to Egypt because I focus more on Egyptian style belly dance. In Egypt, that is how people dance socially. So it's not like, oh, this is not appropriate. Of course, there are taboos, that I won't get too much into. There are taboos about performing professionally, and there are taboos about dancing in front of men that are not related to you, yes, but this is a dance that people do from childhood to old age. They do it socially, they do it at parties. This is how people celebrate and have fun. And so it's just interesting that we have these taboos here in our society. And it's nice to be able to break through that. And it's very, very empowering. And people think that they're coming into this class to learn, to do something fun or to learn how to move their hips. And yes, they're going to get that out of it. But there's a whole lot of things that are happening, I think, on a deeper level that can really help to transform you as a person and to begin to see yourself in a different and more positive light.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing that you touched base that I really want to ask you about, do you have men joining your classes? Because I have seen some amazing videos of men dancing, belly dancing on the internet. And yeah, it was so interesting to me.
Yes, absolutely. So this is not a dance that is a women's dance, although most of the people that practice it are women. There are definitely lots of men that do belly dance, and they are really, really amazing. And I have trained with some male dancers as well, and I come from a lineage. My teacher, one of my main teachers and mentors, Tashira, trained with a male dancer as well, so Bobby Farah. So they are not uncommon, and you can be a belly dancer. It's not a gendered thing, and there are lots of people that are not not binary as well. There are people that are trans, so it's really totally regardless of gender, even though there is this stereotype that it's a women's dance. And of course we have our stereotypical definitions of femininity, and by those definitions it's definitely a dance that will get you in touch with your femininity. So it's not for people that are scared to go there, but it's not about gender.
Right, right. It's just about the energy, and we need both energies, the male and the female energy, so the masculine and the female. And yeah, but I thought it was very interesting that you do that. And I hope that people can get more comfortable with themselves, because when we get comfortable with ourselves, we also get comfortable with being with other people and dancing whichever way makes us happy. Because in the end of the day, it's not so much about sensuality, like you say, it's about just moving, having fun, connecting, sharing, all those things. Um, Going now into your background, I know you mentioned that you worked in corporate for so many years, and that you've been training as a belly dancer. Could you give us a little bit more about how long did it take you? Like, what training did it take for you to get to where you are right now? Because you've been training at this point for like 10 years or longer.
Yeah, so I've been belly dancing for 14 years, and I didn't have like a goal to like do this full time. I didn't have a goal to be a professional, but I kind of did. It was like kind of something I wanted, but I didn't like set like a specific goal. Like this is what I'm gonna do. And I really, for the longest time, never thought that it was something that was feasible to do this for a living, because mostly because there were just a lot of people around me that just always said, oh, you don't want to be a starving artist, or don't quit your day job, you want to have a secure corporate job and have a certain paycheck every 2 weeks or whatever. So that was kind of the story that I had running in my head for a really long time. So even when I just kind of fell into doing this professionally, because after a couple of years, I just started to get opportunities to get paid to perform. and I started to get opportunities to teach. And so, kind of early on into my training, just a couple of years into my training, I was already, performing professionally here and there, teaching private classes here and there. And uh, so I just kind of, it just kind of happened, but I just didn't think that I could do this full time. And it wasn't until I had been working, I was probably working corporate for maybe 10 years or so after graduating. And I had been progressing, kind of climbing up the ladder and doing well for myself. But the more I kind of climbed up, the less fulfilled I felt. There were a lot of things that I don't necessarily want to discuss in too much detail, but that I just didn't agree with, in that environment. I just didn't feel like it, people were treated fairly. I didn't feel like, there was a higher purpose to what I was doing. It was just trying to make somebody else money. And I wasn't fulfilled, doing that. And I didn't love the area that I was in. I felt out of place. And so I just kept thinking, maybe I'll just move to a different department. And it took me some time to move over to a different department. But then I still didn't feel like I was fulfilled there. And so I finally realized that I needed to just take the plunge and take my dance full time, because that was something that I took a lot of joy in doing. So at that point, I was teaching weekly classes pretty regularly. I think maybe I was doing twice a week classes and privates here and there. And I really love teaching. I mean, I love to perform as well, but I really, really, really love teaching. That's where I feel like I could really, like, I'm really doing something that matters and something that I'm good at. Performing was a skill that I had to develop. Teaching is a skill that I have kind of naturally. Of course, I'm always developing it and trying to improve, but it's something that I do, I'm kind of natural at, and that there is an impact to what I'm doing. So I really loved teaching, and it didn't matter if I was working a 12-hour day and things were very stressful at work or in my personal life. I could come to dance and I would feel better for that moment 100% of the time. And then afterwards, 99% of the time, I would still be feeling better, and I would get to keep that feeling with me through the next few hours or for the rest of the day. So I knew that I needed I already had something that I loved, and so why not make that into an official business and pursue it full time? And so I started to take the steps to do it full time. I established the business, and I started to save money and to make a plan. And then from that point, it still took a couple of years to actually be able to take the plunge. So about maybe 3 or 4 years from that point. So I don't know at what point you start counting. But it really has been just a great journey, and not something that I had. It's not something that from the beginning I was like, this is what I'm gonna do. But it was in my heart from the beginning. It just wasn't in my mind from the beginning. I don't know how to put
Okay,
it.
I think what you're saying is that that you had interest in belly dancing and you took it on as something on the side, had fun with it, and that there was interest. You weren't like, oh, this is what I'm gonna be doing, that's like my next career gonna be like. And then somehow that happened because you enjoyed it so much, and it just on its own became what it is today,
Yeah,
Sharqi Dance.
exactly.
One question which I want to take it even further back, and I know it's been a long time. What had you initially attracted to belly dancing specifically? Because you could have done, anything. And you do, even though you live in New Jersey, you still have so many opportunities, you know?
Yeah,
So what was it about it? Like, it's belly dancing.
yeah, that's a great question. I always was fascinated by belly dance, so it was something as a kid, back in Brazil, sometimes they had like a TV show, they would like have a belly dancer come on and do like a performance. That was really my exposure to it, was seeing it on TV, like a belly dance performance. And I was just like, wow, that's really cool. And then I never thought like, oh, I should learn that. I always wanted to learn dance. I never had the
Hmm.
chance to learn it as a kid, but I always wanted to like go to take a ballet class. I wasn't able to do that, but it was something I wanted to do with belly dance. There were not even belly dance classes where I lived as a kid at the time. So, even if I had said, oh, I want to take a class, there's nothing I could have done at that point. And we didn't have online classes back then like we do now. So, it just wasn't accessible. So it was just something I thought was cool. I was fascinated by, but I never, thought, oh, this is something I could learn. I never even thought it was possible to learn it. And then later on, I was living here in the US. I was, 20 or so years old, and it just popped into my head. I was like, I need a hobby. And it just popped into my head. And, I started, at that point, YouTube already existed. So I started looking it up on YouTube and finding YouTube videos that I could, try to teach myself while also
Hmm.
looking for a class in person, which took me a few months to find. So I started on my own just with YouTube tutorials. And then a couple months later, I found an instructor here in New Jersey, and I started studying with her. And then over the years, I've studied with a couple of different instructors throughout the state and taken workshops with instructors all over the world. Um, and all that time, I've always also taken, learned through DVDs and through YouTube videos, and now through online classes with different instructors. Um, so yeah, I don't even know how we got into that answer. Like, I
I
forgot.
I think it's a hobby of yours, and I think
Yeah.
you're it's a very good example because I have heard multiple times that you don't want your hobbies to be the ones that bring you the majority of your income. And it's so common. Like, oh, if you're gonna be doing that, turning it into a job, you're not gonna enjoy it as much. You're just gonna, stop loving it. It's gonna become like just another job. And I guess since you turn your hobby into a job, could you let us know if that's really the truth or it's just another myth? And it might happen to some people, but overall, I personally think it's a myth. But
Yeah,
yeah, you tell me.
I think it's a lie. I think there's some grounding of truth in it. The thing is, so, I have a lot of other hobbies. So as this has become my job, other things, it's created the space for me to have more hobbies. And so I have all these hobbies. So yeah, don't let it be your only hobby. If your hobby becomes your job, get some new hobbies. You definitely don't want to just have the one thing that you love, and then now your financial stability depends on it, and it's also the one thing that you love. Like, yeah, you need to get a new hobby, but for sure, don't not do the thing. um don't not start making money on your hobby because you're afraid that you're not gonna enjoy it anymore. I guess maybe for some people they stop enjoying it. Definitely, yeah, when you make it into an obligation. um yeah, it does it take the joy away. I mean, I don't know, I still love it. And why wouldn't you do what you love? Like,
Yeah, I
wouldn't you
think
want
what happens
to do?
is, and I don't know if this is gonna help, but what I can share my point of view, I started doing this, right? And then some things happened, like family reasons why I actually stopped, but then I started again, and then found myself stuck. And I was like, why is this happening, right? So I did a little bit of like research, and then I realized that it was because I wasn't making it fun. I was making it, like you said, it became like an obligation. And then I let myself be, and now I'm starting again, and I'm having so much fun with it. And it's not being forced, it's not being pushed, it's just happening. But I think it's because I'm allowing myself to enjoy the process and to make mistakes as well, and to experience. And outside of this, I am doing other things. This is not my whole life. This is just a part of my life that brings me joy, and I enjoy sharing other people's stories as I share my own. So I think that, yeah, you bring a very good point. It's about like keeping things interesting. You know,
Exactly.
just because your current hobby has become your job and you love doing it doesn't mean you just stop there. You like explore. Now you actually have more time to explore because now you don't have a corporate job.
Right.
Now you have your hobby that is a job that you love doing, and you have that time that you previously used for the current hobby to actually bring in new things and more interesting
Right,
things.
exactly. Yeah, it's definitely important to
Yeah.
have other things and also to take breaks. And like, it's so, so important to take a break. Doesn't matter how much you love something, you still need a break from it. You need to get away, you need to relax and to recharge. You need to go do
Right.
something else, think about something else. So, yeah, you can't to live and breathe this one thing, and now your financial stability is attached to it. And sometimes, whether we like it or not, that'll come with attaching your sense of worth to it. And so that's where things can really go downhill, and you can easily burn yourself out and lose your passion for something. But yeah, if you can keep things interesting, keep things fresh, and yeah, remember to have fun, because just because you're making money from it doesn't mean that it should stop being fun. So yeah, as
Exactly.
enjoyable for yourself as you can. Like, you're making all the rules now. Why would you make it unenjoyable? I mean, there's some things that you have to do that are not going to be that much fun, but you can, within what you can control, there's so much that you can do to keep it interesting and to keep it fun.
Yeah, you bring a very good point. Like you're not gonna love everything you do about this, but majority of it will be. So it kind of really outweighs those activities or things that you don't really enjoy as much. Which brings me to the next question. What do you find the most challenging about your journey so far? Quitting a corporate job, a job that really provides. I find corporate jobs, regardless whether you love them, because some people do love it, and that's really where their passion is and their purpose. And for some others, like you and me, corporate job was just a means to an end, and also learning certain skills. So, what would you say is the most challenging part for you on this journey, or like different parts? Maybe there's multiple things that you found challenging.
Yeah, so the most challenging part of this journey, um, I think for me personally, a lot of it is the internal stuff, is like dealing with the fears, of scarcity. It's dealing with the fears of not being good enough, the sense of like, am I worthy? Am I a good enough dancer? Comparing myself with other people. And so that's the most difficult, because in this, when you have your own business, and especially the type of business that I'm in, it's you're dealing with rejection and the possibility of rejection all the time, and that's not an easy thing for most people to deal with, and it's definitely not an easy thing for me to deal with. But it's like, sometimes going into these places of greatest fear and greatest pain is where you get the most reward. And so that's, I face that, every day basically, and it's usually rewarding. Some days are more difficult than others, but there's always a reward on the other side of it, for sure, because just the work that I get to do every day, and the people that I get to meet through this work, it's just so, so worth it.
What would you say is a way for you to deal with yourself when you see fear coming through, or something that I know you said fear, but like I'm trying to think of another way to say, like, something that you're just like, oh, this is gonna challenge me, and am I good enough for it? Can I do it? Like, how do you deal with those? Because you obviously have been dealing with it very successfully since you're here today, and you have an established business. What's your way?
So it really depends on the day. It really depends on the day. So luckily, what I get to do, this I get to move, I get to dance for a living. And so very often, it just kind of, I get to just move myself out of these states because I kind of have to, because that's what I do. It's like I don't even have to, oh, let me set aside the time and go dance now because I feel afraid or because I feel rejected or whatever it is that I'm working through. It's no, I have a class to teach, so I'm gonna have to move. And it just automatically takes me out of that. So that's really, really amazing because oftentimes, so movement will, almost always, so, through my dance practice, through my yoga practice, I just get to kind of naturally move through these feeling states. Now, if I don't have a class that I'm teaching, it's I deal with a lot of inner resistance to doing the thing that would make me feel better, and that is, I think, a universal human thing. When we most need to move and to get those feelings out of our bodies, is when we least want to. And maybe sometimes, it's the best thing to do is to just feel it, to just honor what you're feeling. So I do that a lot. Where if I'm upset, I need to cry, I'll cry. I'll set aside the time. And I literally like put it on my calendar. Like here's my self care, my depression self care, or whatever I want to call it. So I do spend the time feeling through what I need to feel, and then when I'm ready to get up again, and maybe it's a whole day that I'm allowing myself to feel something like that, and then I go into the next day. I'm like, this is a new day, and I also have very, very grounding practices that I'm really disciplined about. So I always wake up, and the first thing that I do is a little bit of gratitude and setting my intentions for the day, some deep breaths, and then I go into movement, which right now I'll do a yoga practice, and it could be 5 minutes long, it could be 20 minutes long, it could be a whole hour long, depending on how much time I have and what my body wants to do. So that's what I do right now. In the past, it's been dance, so 5 minutes of dance, 20 minutes, an hour of dance, whatever my body felt like doing at that time. So any type of movement. And that's how I start my day. And I do that every day before I turn on my phone, before I start looking at my messages, before I start doing anything else, because that's my time for myself, to ground myself and to show myself that I'm a priority, and that I kind of get to set the tone for the day before I start taking in the outside world. So that practice really helps me to stay grounded, because otherwise, I'm a very sensitive person, so my energy would be all over the place without that. So that helps me too with dealing with all these difficult things about running the business, having that grounded practice. And I try to have something at night, something similar at night as well, although to be very honest, I am not as consistent about that, but the morning, I'm very, very consistent about. So sometimes I have to, grieve, or I have to feel depressed. I have to feel my fears. I have to feel what I'm feeling. And then when it's time to release it, movement is usually for me the best way to go. So I have dance as a great tool, and there's yoga, which I use as well, and other forms of movement as well if I'm, inclined that day. But those are the two main ones.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that with me. I think that is a real example of someone who is making her life a success, and the tools that you are using. And I wanted to say that it's something that if you're to read in books about successful people, is one of the advices that you would read, like leave time for yourself in the morning, have a routine, um, make sure that you're taking care of, like fill your cup up before you go and try to fill somebody else's cup up. So you gave us a really good example, and I'm so glad that you are taking time for yourself and doing self-care, which is so important. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to do what you do. You wouldn't be able to provide for all of us and bring the beautiful energy that you bring to every single class.
Oh, thank
So you're welcome. How would you define your business to fit into sustainability
Yeah, that's
as
a
a
great,
whole? Yeah, and
yeah.
it's a very broad thing, and I always explain myself. I see sustainability as something that is not just about the nature and the products that we use and how we use them, which is a major part, but I see it as in like if you yourself internally aren't taking care of, aren't healing, aren't doing what you need to do, no matter how many desires you have about doing recycling, doing all those things, in the end of the day, you're really not doing it with the the power that you have to do it. And what I mean by power, I mean with the it just doesn't come in from your heart. And when it comes from your heart, it's a completely different world because then you might not just do recycling. You might change the soap that you use. You might make your own things at home. And it just really changes because you now internally are sustainable. You're taking care of yourself. You have healed and are healing. And that creates a ripple effect of how we treat others and also how we treat the environment. So, in that definition, how do you see your business fit in?
Yes, so I see this very, very direct correlation between the way that we treat ourselves and the way that we treat each other and the way that we treat our planet. I think it's all totally, completely related.
Yeah.
So, just like they say, as within, so without. So it's the
Mm,
same thing. The world that we have created and the way that we just take and take and take the resources from our planet is very much a reflection of how we treat ourselves too. And this expectation of that I have to be constantly doing, doing, doing. I have to be constantly giving, giving, giving. I have to be constantly putting out. And I have to be at my highest level of productivity all the time, every day, all day. And that's literally not how nature works. There's nothing in nature that works this way. It works in cycles. And there are times where you can be more productive, and there are times where you need rest. And the idea of being in darkness, the idea of resting, of recharging, has been so, it's so shamed. It's so shamed. It's like if we could have our way in this world, it would just be day all the time, and we would just constantly be working all the time. That's not how we're meant to work. And so I see my work as being a way to bring myself and those that I get to work with and those that get to see what I'm doing and kind of be inspired by it as a way to balance that, as a way to say, it's okay. Not even it's okay, because it's okay that like, oh, it's okay to take time for myself. No, it's not okay. It's essential to take time for myself. It's essential to, of course, what I'm doing is active. It's movement, but it's like in our society we don't even give ourselves a chance to do that. It's like you're either working or you're doing chores or you're sleeping because you have to. If we didn't have to sleep, we would be up all day to get all the things done that we want to do. And so what my work is about, tuning in to yourself, tuning into your needs, and spending that time, also kind of undoing a lot of the things that we've been taught to think about ourselves, like unlearning a lot of the things that we've been taught to that are wrong about ourselves. That if you look a certain, like, you have to look this very specific way to be worthy. We live in this world where there's a very narrow definition of what's beautiful, and if you don't fit it, you should go hide or you should go die or whatever it is that they expect us to do if we don't fit within those standards. And even if you do fit into those standards, you're gonna fit into them for a very short amount of time. And then as we age, it's like you are worthless and you should just go hide.
Right.
And I see my work as the purpose of my work as undoing that. So it's though it doesn't matter what you look like, it doesn't matter how old your body is beautiful. There's something to be grateful, whether or not you feel that way, whether or not you feel beautiful in this moment, and it's perfectly fine not to feel beautiful too. But that to be able to hold gratitude for your body, for everything that it does for you in each and every moment, and to give your body what it needs. Movement. Most of us are sitting in front of a desk all day, so to have this time to do something that's really good for your body, and that it doesn't matter what you look like, that your body needs movement, is worthy of movement, that you are worthy of giving yourself this time, of having fun. It's also connection with other women. So again, we live in this world where we're told that other women are our competition, and so being in a space that is mostly, and of course it's not exclusive to women, men are welcome and non-binary people are welcome, but that is mostly usually dominated by women. So to be in these spaces where you can heal a lot of that is so amazing. So we're healing within ourselves. These ideas that like we need to be in competition, that we need to be constantly doing, that we need to be constantly taking. And I think as we heal that within ourselves in the way that we treat ourselves, then we can create a space around us that revolves around this new changed mindset, and that it does translate into the way that you treat other people and into the way that you build your lifestyle, into the way that you build the way you make money, the way that we exchange, so our economies will be shaped differently if we each shifted to a mindset more like that, and the way that we treat our planet, because it's just the way that we're doing things right now. It's literally just not sustainable, and if you think about what that actually means, is that it's about, for ourselves, like that it's not sustainable for ourselves individually and as a collective. Like we are destroying our planet, but the planet's still going to be around. Like what we're actually destroying is our ability to live in this planet. We're destroying ourselves just the same way as if you're just working and working and working and working, and you're not taking the time to do the things that you love, and you're not taking the time to rest and recharge. You're running yourself ragged. You're destroying your ability to thrive and to live and to have longevity and to live a happy life. So I hope that wasn't too long of a ramble, but I do think that those things are very much directly related, and that we can't really create lasting change in the way that we in the way that we treat our planet unless we create that change within ourselves.
Yeah, you touch base on everything, and I think it really like your work demonstrates how much of an importance or value there is into making ourselves a priority, doing something for ourselves. And movement really does help for people to heal, because the healing is mental, spiritual, physical, in all those in all those areas. Like, just because you're a brilliant mind doesn't mean your body can keep up with it. So you gotta not connect the mind and the body, and then connected to your deeper self, which is like the spiritual side, which you really can't see or feel, but it's just there with us. And when we go through the steps of healing, we actually connect to it. And it's something really hard to explain, I would say, because I myself am on this journey and I am starting to see it more and more, but I just can't really explain it for people. Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because like to me it just makes sense. Like there's not even any explaining. Like it's just something you just have, you just know. Um, but I guess, I don't know, maybe some people need it explained to them.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I think a lot of us can just understand this idea.
Hmm. Um, yeah, I agree with you. And there was one more little thing that I really want to touch base that you mentioned, and that is about giving. Um, and I think us as women specifically are natural givers, and I think that's the reason why there's, a major shift in who we are in this world and the respect that we are demanding because it's not really given to us. um I think that you really mentioned that, and I think that this dance really helps for people, specifically for women. I do get that it's for anyone, it's open to anyone, like we mentioned earlier. But I think that for women specifically, it helps for them to step into their bodies that they've been avoiding for centuries. Like it carries down generations. Like my grandma, if I told her that I'm doing belly dancing, she would just be like, you've gone crazy or something. You've lost it. So, I think that, yeah, this movement really helps with the healing of our inner selves and letting our, like, feeling the body, feeling the movement, doing it differently than we're used to, just walking down the street, you just walk a certain way. And I've noticed I do this. I don't want my hips to be shifting around too much when I walk down the street because I don't want it to get too much attention, which, you know what I mean? So, I think it's about finding the balance between giving and taking. There are some groups of people that are doing a lot more taking, and now it's time for them to also give more so we can receive as women. So the feminine and the masculine can find a balance because that's really where it is. It's not like one is less important than the other or one is more important than the other. It's about finding the balance. And I think that what you do really helps with that. I think it helps both sexes or all sexes because I know that, everyone defines themselves differently to do that. Um, yeah. I'm gonna go on, unless you have something to say, I'm gonna go on to the next question. You're good?
Yes, I didn't know if you wanted me to comment on this, but yeah, I think you definitely hit the nail on the head with this idea that as women we are expected to give and give and give. And we're definitely in a very unique time right now in our society where you know we are coming to a lot of realizations about our roles, our place in the world, and we've gained a lot of rights over the past 50 years or so. I mean, if you really look at our history, we were basically the property of men not that long ago.
Yeah.
This is not It's not that long ago, it's like a couple of generations ago, and depending on how you define things, I mean, I don't want to get into too much detail about that, but essentially we've been property, and there's a lot in the way that we are viewed even today, and that still kind of treats us as property, and this idea that we can't have ownership over our bodies. I mean, there's nothing that will get people more angry than a woman being able to do what she wants with her body. If you look at like all of there's so many different aspects. I don't even, I don't want to get into anything super controversial, but like people will get this instinctual reaction seeing a woman with like leg hair or armpit hair. Like people get so offended when a woman just chooses to just be how she naturally is as a woman. Nothing gets people more angry than a woman choosing to do what she wants with her body in every single aspect. If you're a mother, people will get angry at you for breastfeeding in public, or people will get angry at you for not breastfeeding. It doesn't matter what you do as a woman, you're wrong. And so I think a lot of us are coming into this space where it's like, it doesn't matter what I do, it's wrong for somebody, and it doesn't matter what I do, I'm going to be judged. So I might as well just do what I want,
Yeah.
and why not claim your right and your ability to move your body the way that you want. So yeah, there's so many reasons why it's so taboo in our society. I never realized how taboo it even was until I started doing this for a living. And then like you always deal with this reaction, when people ask you, what do you do? And I say I belly dance. And it's just very interesting, because either people are very like, oh, like this is, oh, like so scandalous, or just people just think it's just a silly thing, and I think it's neither of those things. It's so deep, it's so powerful, it's so empowering, and anyway, so yeah, so this is a time where a lot of us as women are coming into that power, and belly dance is one of many ways that you can get in touch with that. And so yeah, I'm really happy that I get to do this work.
Well, I'm happy that you get to take it across not just US but the world, but we'll get into that in just a moment. I asked you about challenges, and now I want to ask you about what do you find to be the most rewarding about what you do? And yeah, we'll go with that first. Yeah.
So yeah, the most rewarding thing about what I do, I mean, I think it's exactly that, what we were just talking about. It's just getting to seeing somebody, walk into a class on day one, and everyone's a little bit like, oh, what am I walking into? Everyone's a little bit nervous and shy. And I attract mostly students that are, because, sometimes you get people that are just like, they're just so like naturally so good at it, and like they have no inhibitions. And like those people do exist, and it's great. That's not most of the people that come into my classes. Most of the people that come into my classes are like, oh, I don't know that I could do this. I'm not naturally a good dancer, or they've never moved their bodies in this way. And to come from day one, where I'm breaking down the movement and explaining kind of the most basic form, the movements in their most basic form, and explaining that it takes time, to get the movements. You're not gonna necessarily be able to do them right away. So it takes time and it takes patience, and talking about learning to enjoy the process and to trust the process, instead of beating yourself up for not doing it the way you think you should be doing it right away. So to go from that to a couple of months later, where they can do the movements that they were struggling with the first couple of days, and how empowering that is really, really amazing. And then to learn what's happening at a deeper level, because a lot of times the people coming into my class, even though I'm not a coach, so I'm not talking about these personal things, it's just sometimes you're chit-chatting or you're doing a follow-up after class, and people will share some things that they're going through. And a lot of times they're going into belly dance is kind of coinciding with some kind of a major shift in their life, whether it's in a relationship, it could be leaving a toxic relationship, or learning how to be in a healthy relationship, or it could be realizing that I'm not really fulfilling my purpose in my day job, and I'm going through a career shift. And to have something, to be able to offer something to people that gives them an outlet, when something in life is too stressful, and that gives them an outlet where they can be themselves, and they're not worried about having to provide for somebody in that moment, having to be something for somebody else in that moment. They can just explore their bodies and just take the time to learn something new. So getting to be a part of that is super, super rewarding. And then just the people that I meet, you know, through this dance. I mean, I've met so many people that have gone on to become amazing friends or amazing mentors, and to get to follow the journey of the people that take my classes, you know, whether they're still taking my classes or they've gone on to do something else, and just to see where they go in life. It puts me in touch with women that are very, very powerful, whether or not in that moment they realize that. And that are doing really good work. I mean, I'm just always in awe by the things that my students are doing out there in the world. I mean, some of them are activists, and some of them, you know, like you, are doing just working on projects that have such a positive impact in the people around them, in the world around them. And I mean, if I didn't have dance, if I didn't do this, I wouldn't know all these people. I wouldn't get to see all this. I mean, I'm sure I'd get to see something else, but like, this is really, really amazing. So I would say that that's the most rewarding. And then when somebody tells me that, like, something that I said in class, you know, helped them to feel better about something they've been struggling with, or they've gone through a traumatic experience, and some of the affirmations that I use are helping them through their healing, you know, that's really like this is why I do this. So yeah,
I can imagine that feeling. That is a beautiful feeling, to see someone go, like, transform right in front of your eyes. Thank you so much for sharing that. Okay, and I wanted to ask you, which I think you kind of touched base on it just by answering this question. That's why sometimes I put them together, but I was like, let me separate them. What are some opportunities that you saw come from you being bold and really stepping out of your comfort zone? Like you said, you had a lot of fears, a lot of things that were stopping you from fully embarking and saying, hey, goodbye, corporate job. I really don't enjoy you. Though you provide something for me, I really want to do something else. And then where you are right now as well, because, you know, throughout the years, there were, I'm sure, different opportunities for you. What are some that you can remember that you can really share with us that you don't think you would have got being in a corporate job?
Yeah, so I would just say, yes, the same answer as before. So getting to see all these results and getting these rewards. I mean, I was already doing that, but I wouldn't have been able to reach and impact as many people if I had been dedicating 8, 10, 12 hours a day to a corporate job right now, and then just doing dance on the side. Just, there's no way that I could be reaching and impacting as many people as I am now. So that's the main one. And then just the chance to have other hobbies, you know, the chance to have other hobbies, the chance to continue my learning to the extent that I have. You know, right now I'm working on this yoga teacher training. I'm finishing up in this month of November, and that's been a very kind of intensive process. It's taken a whole year, so it's not one of those that's like just 3 months. It's like it's over the course of a year. And if I had the corporate job and I was doing dance on the side, I couldn't have picked that up. So that's been a really, really great opportunity to expand my own knowledge and my own skills. Another opportunity that I get to receive is to explore other hobbies. And this year I've been able to really invest a lot of time in scuba diving and free diving, which are some skills that I'm trying to get deeper into, so that to improve my mermaiding. So that's another thing that I've been that I do as a hobby and kind of semi-professionally. So it's dressing up in a swimmable tail, and then I get to dive and swim in pools or tanks or in the open water. And so that's something that is just another hobby that was just like when I started belly dance. It was something that just really called to me. And so I started doing it, and I've had some opportunities to perform professionally. And I'm just, just kind of building up my skills to just be able to hold my breath for longer underwater, to be able to do underwater performances. So without, if I had a corporate job and I was doing just belly dance on the side, I wouldn't have the opportunity to explore things like mermaiding on the side, yoga, things like that. So for me, that has been the biggest benefit as far as opportunities, is to get to have all these other hobbies. Also to be able to travel more often, because with here in the US we get 2 or maybe 3 weeks of vacation time every year if you're lucky. And that's really not enough, to travel. When I go to Brazil, I have to stay for a long time. I have a lot of people to visit. So to spend all my vacation going to Brazil, visit family, means I don't get to travel the world. I don't get to travel around the country. And now with what I do, especially since I mostly teach online, I can travel. I could take 1 week off, and I could go somewhere for 2 weeks, and I could teach for a week and just be off for the other week. So I've been getting to travel even just locally, to go away more, to have more time even within a regular week. A lot of my work is done in the evenings, so I can work around my daytime schedule to fit different things that I want to do during the day. So I feel like I get to do a lot more. I get to do a lot more with my life. And another thing that I would consider an opportunity is to just be there for the people in my life a lot more, to get to spend time with my friends and my loved ones a lot more, and to really be there for people in a way that I couldn't do before. So those are the biggest opportunities that I've had.
And they're amazing. They are amazing. That's one of the reasons why I choose to do what I do as well, is I really think that I get to do a lot more with my life. And those 2 weeks on vacation doesn't work for me. It's just like I did it for a few years, and I was like, oh my God, is this how the rest of my life is gonna be? And I was like, I gotta do something about it. I just gotta do something about it. Okay. Mermaiding. Wow, awesome. I didn't know that. Thank you for sharing it so much. That is super cool. I've seen people do it, but I didn't even know it was called mermaiding. Now I do. And yoga certification, which I think I will ask you in a moment. You'll share more with us. But I wanted to go back and share, how was COVID for you in 2020 and 2021? I know that there were some transformation that you created during COVID, and I would love for you to share it with all of us.
Yeah. So COVID, yeah,
It
it was
still is.
last year.
It still is, right? Like
Yeah,
COVID is still
right.
a big part of our lives.
It still is, but definitely, now with vaccines, that many people are vaccinated, and we've been able to get back to. It's not like getting back to normal. There's not a getting back to normal. Like there, like we need to be creating a new and better normal, because the normal that existed before COVID was not sustainable. It's not how we should be living our lives. So I think COVID has been an opportunity for a lot of us to reset and rethink how we do things, and to start thinking about how we want to do things, and start laying down the groundwork for that. So I think overall that's been, if you want to look at the silver lining of COVID, I think that we're still in the transition stage, but over the next few years, a lot of people are going to be taking what they've learned from COVID. Like, look at how these corporations are just abusing their workers and how much they're disregarding your health and your life, and they expect you to come in, and then they'll just fire you. Like, you don't get 2 weeks when you're being fired. You're just being fired at that moment, and then it's like, figure it out. And how much the government haven't given people the assistance that they need. And so people were coming to these realizations, and they're starting to think about, okay, well, how can I create something for myself and for my community that is more sustainable, and that is more ethical, and that actually serves us. And over the coming years, we get to build this new way of living. But that's more so, on the whole, and maybe that is my own biased perspective. But from what I see in my communities, that is what I'm seeing. But for myself personally, COVID, of course, yes, we're still going through it, but this year is, in terms of the pandemic, is a much better year than last year, because last year the virus had just come out, and we had just didn't really know what it was at first. So if you think back to those first couple of months of lockdown, we really didn't know, and we weren't prepared, and we didn't know how to deal with it. Our hospitals were not prepared, they were overrun. And so there was this lockdown, this major lockdown for months, and there was this isolation, this total social isolation that was, for me, as an introvert, at first it was actually very liberating. Like, I felt like, oh my God, like, I have my energy back. Like, I don't have to be out there in the world. And then after a couple of months, I realized that, I do need social interaction. And it was very, very hard for me emotionally, those first few months of COVID, with the isolation. Of course, I still got to interact with people through Zoom. So what COVID did for me was, it forced me to shift my model from teaching classes in person into teaching completely online. And I had to do that within basically a couple of days. It was like, okay, well, we hadn't officially locked down, but I had realized how serious the pandemic was. And so I decided I need to take my classes to an online model. And that's what I did. And I adapted. And it ended up being a positive thing for me, because I started to get students all over the country, and now I have students all over the country, all over the world, really. And it's really wonderful to be exposed to so many different people from so many different places. And so it ended up being a positive thing for me. But of course, it's still a horrible thing, and it's so unfortunate how many people have died, that didn't have to die, and how many people, somebody that was close to them. And so it was hard. It was hard to see the way that society split, into different factions, and all the division and the hate that came with it. So it was a really hard period, and we're still in that in many ways. It's a little bit easier as far as the pandemic goes now, because for me personally, being vaccinated, I have more peace of mind that I can go out there in the world, and I'm not gonna catch this virus that, could potentially put me in the hospital and, like, have me die a painful death alone. So that was a big fear last year. It's not so much there now, but it's still very much, you can still catch COVID even if you're vaccinated. So it hasn't gone away, but we've gone through the worst of it, for now. So that was my experience with it.
How would you compare the lockdown to now? Would you say that you are now back to doing classes in person as well, or are you still just keeping the online?
No, I'm doing in person only once a month for now. And yeah, I'm still mostly focused on teaching online. I really love to teach online. It's very convenient even for my students that are here in New Jersey. And I have students all over the place now, and I'm not gonna let go of them. So I do want to be able to teach in person more regularly than just once a month. But for right now, once a month is what makes sense to me right now. So I do once a month, and I do it as intensive. So if you were doing weekly classes, you'd come, mostly 4 times. If you're doing once a week, you'd be coming, say, 4 times a month, so 4 hours a month. My once a month classes, you can do 2 hours or you can do 4 hours. There's two back to back, so you're still getting your 4 hours a month. They're just happening all at once.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to get the most of it, you can do the in person and the online in between, so that way in person I can still look at the things that you can't necessarily see online. And I do miss teaching in person a little bit more regularly, because in person you get this energy that just isn't there online. And when I see a whole person, there's just a whole other way of teaching when I'm in person versus online. And it definitely is better as a teacher and for the student to do it in person. Um, so yes, I do hope to be able to provide more opportunities to teach in person. But for right now, the pandemic is still, going strong. We still have a lot of new cases every day here in New Jersey, like in the thousands. And I always feel afraid of, putting people at risk. And there's only so many people I can fit into the studio with the spacing, issues. So it just once a month is what makes sense for now. And in the future, I hope to be able to do maybe twice a month. Maybe at some point I will go back to doing weekly in-person classes, but I will always keep most of my classes. I'll always be running most of my classes online. So I'll always want to do 3 to 4 or 5 times a week online, plus whatever in person.
That's
So
nice.
yeah.
Who would you say is your ideal client? Though I do get that this could be very broad. Um, how do you
Yeah.
define your client?
Yeah, so my ideal client is any person that wants to get in touch with a different way of moving their body, a specific way of moving their body, getting in touch with um, these more sinuous movements and movements that are more sensual, if you want to say, and that are open to learning about a different culture, because belly dance is rooted in the dances of the Middle East. So somebody that likes to learn about other cultures. In my classes, I do talk about the musical context and the cultural context of the music that we use and why we do the movements that we do. So somebody that's open to that, and somebody, yeah, that is wanting to explore their bodies in a new way.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for sharing that information. And last but not least, actually, I have two more questions for you. My first question is, where do you see yourself going from now on? And you mentioned online classes mainly, and possibly some more in person. But is there anything else? I know we mentioned earlier yoga. What else is coming up for you for the time to be?
Yeah, so I'll be teaching yoga in addition to belly dance as well. And yeah, for everything, continuing to teach online. So teaching online group classes and also online one-on-one classes. So I love working with people on one-on-one, because then we can really get into the deeper stuff, and how the dance or yoga can help you to go through your inner transformations, and in as a result your outer transformations as well. So I want to be able to do more and more of that work. Yes, in person it will probably be just a smaller aspect of that. It again, group and one-on-ones. In-person one-on-ones are like the best, most ideal. But yeah, to just continue to expand what I'm offering basically is where I see myself going, and to continue to expand in my hobbies as well. So one thing I didn't mention is that I have been I've been learning how to play the darbuka, also known as a doumbek or Egyptian tabla. So that is one of the main percussive instruments that we use in the Middle Eastern music that we use for belly dance. And it's really gotten me in touch with kind of the heartbeat of our music. So it's another thing that like I just got into because it's fun and I love it, and then I didn't have like in my mind like, oh, I have this specific goal in mind. But over the years, I've been learning it for about 2.5 years now. It's come to a point where now I'm also drumming for my students, and so it's really really it's a wonderful thing that like I didn't even think, oh, this is what I'm going to be doing, and it's happening simply because I'm just following something that I love. So to integrate, that the music and the dance, to integrate breath, to integrate yoga, and to offer, experiences for people that kind of involve all those aspects, because the drumming can be really really healing and very transformational as well. So yeah, offering opportunities for people to do this in person, where maybe like a retreat where we can all get together from all over the country, all over the world, and have these experiences with music, with dance, with breath and yoga, is something that I definitely see on the horizon. So yeah, basically just more of what I'm already doing, and it's wonderful to think about that.
I hope I get to come to one of your retreats in the future. I know you had one recently, but I couldn't make it. Okay, and I guess last but not least, what advice would you give to people that are finding themselves right now in a place where like, oh, maybe, I do want to start something, but I'm not sure already like started. Like what's an advice that you would give to them besides from like maybe anything else that we haven't talked about that you would like to share with us?
Yeah, I would say do it. I would say, um, if it's aligned with your passions, if it's something that you're passionate about, if it's something that you love, I would say keep following it, and then see where it takes you. I mean, if you have like a concrete idea of what you want to do, I think it's always worth taking a shot. It's always better to regret having failed at something, rather than regret not having tried at all. And really, I don't see failures as failures. Everything is just a learning opportunity. So if something doesn't work exactly this way, how can I shift and change into something that works a little bit better? So everything is just information and learning opportunities. Um, not every project that we take on, following our heart, following our passion, necessarily has to be something that we do full time. If it feels like that's what you need to be doing, then you take the steps, and you know, make your plans, and when you're ready, you take that plunge. You definitely don't want to, like quit and then quit your day job and then see what happens. But just take the steps, take the first steps, and then see where that takes you. Because I do think that the world would be a better place if more people were following their hearts and were doing the things that they love. So if you have an opportunity to do that, definitely take the plunge.
Thank you so much. And where can we find you on social media?
Yeah, so you can find me on Instagram. Sharqi Dance is at Sharqi Dance. So that's SHARQI Dance. Facebook, it's facebook.com/Sharqi Dance Belly Dance. And then you can find my website, it's just sharqidance.com. And yeah, so those are the official Sharqi dance pages on YouTube as well. So YouTube, I think you could just search for the
I will
channel
also put
Sharqi
it
Dance.
down in the description so people can easily access. I'll put the links in there, but I just wanted to ask so you can directly yourself share where you
Great.
are online.
If I can, you can.
Uh, Thank you so much, Yame, for taking the time of your day today and being here with me and having this conversation, sharing your journey, inspiring us, motivating us, and giving us a real example of what is possible. Um, Again, thanks from my heart.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. This was a pleasure, and I'm so happy that you're doing this work. Thank you for doing this as well.